Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking you to what might be one of the most ambitious and frankly mind-bending theories in all of science, the free energy principle, or FEP, and its partnering activated parenthesis.
It's a big one. Our sources today are all the formidable stack. We're pulling from computational neuroscience, philosophy, cutting-edge AI research, and they're all circling this huge claim, which is that FEP is a foundational unifying theory. I mean, it aims to explain everything from
basic brain function and biology to cognition and how any intelligent agent, be it human, an animal, or a machine, actually works.
That sounds almost too ambitious, doesn't it? If
The theory explains everything from a tree turning to the sun to a human writing a symphony. Is it just too vague to be useful?
And this is totally the real challenge. It's where the critiques often start. What the sources argue the power is in the elegant simplicity of the core mechanism. So the mission for you listening is to grasp this single driving idea, which is always minimizing surprise, and then see how that one principle gives us predictive power across totally different fields. Exactly.
And the big claim here, just to be clear, is that all of life is
driven by one thing, this persistent desire to reduce uncertainty and, well, maintain balance.
Right. It suggests that every living thing is constantly trying to minimize the gap between what it thinks
The world should be like and what it's actually sensing.
Okay, let's unpack this pretty with the name. Free energy principle. The first time I read it, my mind immediately went to, get the free energy thermodynamics.
Of course.
So the first crucial clarification has to be, it's not that, okay?
Precisely. That is the necessary distinction. We're not talking about thermodynamic energy or, the energy for metabolism. In this context, free energy it's a mechanical sort of substitutional free energy bound on something called surprise.
Okay, so free energy is the mathematical trick. The thing you're really trying to avoid then is this surprise. But what is surprise here? Is it just like seeing something new?
No, it's much deeper than just novelty. Surprise in this
in a very technical sense is about the unlikeliness of your sensations. If you're surprised too often, it means there's a dangerous mismatch between your internal model of the world and what's actually happening.
And that mismatch,
If you don't fix it, leads to disorder.
to disorder, yes. The ultimate fate of everything, biologically speaking. Resisting that is the core imperative.
So it's not just about living, it's about not being contradicted by reality. We're sort of say that FEP doesn't just support the idea of the Bayesian brain, it's basically mandates it.
It does. Because if minimizing surprise is the goal, then the brain must be a Bayesian inference engine. It has no other choice. It's constantly updating its best guesses, probabilistic beliefs about what caused its sensory input. And the whole process runs on something called predictive coding.
Right, predictive coding, how it really sounds like the brain is working backwards from how we usually think about it. Not passively waiting for input, but driving from the inside out.
It's entirely top-down. The brain uses an
Internal, what's called a generative model of the world. Think of it like a constant dynamic simulation. It's the brain's best guess of how the world works.
so it's basically hallucinating
Reality all the time.
It is. It's constantly generating
It's already predicting the cool feel of the tile, the location of the coffee machine.
exactly. And then it constantly compares those internal forecasts with the actual sensory information that's already in.
And the difference between the expectation and the reality, that's the key.
That error is the only thing that matters. That's the only time the brain stops and says, maybe my model is wrong. That P gets passed up the neural hierarchy to refine the model. It is what the brain keeps its hallucinations, tethered to the real world.
You just used a really critical term that I want to pause on it, precision. For anyone trying to track this dense material, what is precision here?
Is it basically how much the brain trusts its own signals?
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Precision is the brain's sense of confidence or certainty. So if the brain assigns high precision to a sensory input,
Say, a very clear sound, that prediction error forces a huge update in the model.
But if it assigns high precision to its prediction,
Then it trusts its internal model more, and the error signal gets downplayed, or even ignored. Attention in this whole framework is simply the act of allocating high precision to certain signals.
so we are in this constant negotiation of trusting what we see versus trusting what we already believe.
A continuous internal negotiation, yeah.
Okay, so precision is about updating the internal map based on those errors.
Taylor analogy one of our sources used was incredibly helpful here.
It makes it so concrete. The goal is always a good fit.
Internal expectations and external reality. So if you were Taylor, perception is adjusting the robe as your internal belief to perfectly fit the environment.
Yes, you usually said it would be cold, but it's sunny. Perception updates your belief about the weather. Simple enough.
Right, but active inference, that's adjusting the environment to fit the robe, to fit your predictions.
So the Taylor goes out and tries to influence fashion trends.
Exactly. They say, blue diamond patterns on silk are going to be very trendy soon. They act on the world to make their predictions come true.
So they're not just guessing, they're actively sampling the world in a way that confirms what they already expect. When I reach for my coffee cup, I'm generating inputs that confirm my prediction of how my hand should feel when it grasps the handle.
All action, from a simple reach to a complex decision, is an attempt to sample the environment in a highly predictable way to keep yourself in that little bubble of unsurprising
States where you can survive.
Now, if this framework is really going to unify things, it has to explain the messy parts of being human, like emotion. For decades, we've had this debate.
Are we driven by cold logic or hot emotion? Or some religions say, well, no, this is a false dichotomy.
It is a complete false dichotomy because they're fundamentally inseparable. Emotion or affect gives you the motivational force of my father, and logic provides the direction. You can't have one without the other.
But the puzzle is that emotions feel so immediate. They feel like they bypass logic completely. I see a snake, I feel fear. Science suggests some kind of logic. Appraisal happens before the feeling, even if it's not.
We have clear neural evidence for a fast subcortical pathway. It goes from the superior colliculus to the pulvinar, and bam, amygdala activation. We're talking
50 to 150 milliseconds.
Wait a second. So before I'm even consciously aware of what I'm seeing, my ancient fast brain has already done a quick calculation and decided this is important. Sound the alarm.
I totally rewrite how we think about reacting to things.
it does, and the FED account takes it even further. It completely reconceptualizes what an emotion even is. If the brain is this predictive scientist predicting its hallucination, then emotion is simply the interoceptive error signal.
Interoceptive, so feedback from inside the body. Rage, gut feelings, that kind of thing.
Yes. Emotion is the internal subjective feedback on the state of your body. That visceral feeling of anxiety. That's your system screaming, my internal prediction of stability is failing. It fits perfectly with the modern theory that the brain constructs emotions from concepts, your prior beliefs, and then raw affective signal from the body.
So emotion isn't just some messy byproduct. It's a vital, rapid error signal that gives us flexibility. It lets us pause and reinterpret instead of just acting on pure instinct.
It turns survival into a flexible, probabilistic game.
Okay, let's pivot from normal function to when prediction fails, to computational psychiatry. If minimizing surprise is the goal,
What does it feel like when that system breaks? Is something like anxiety just a state of high prediction error?
Many researchers in the field would argue exactly that. Anxiety is the subjective feeling of high prediction error, but also crucially a misallocation of precision. When that prediction process goes haywire, you get psychopathology.
Let's talk about delusion formation. How does this simple drive to minimize error lead to such a fixed, often bizarre belief?
Well, we can start with an inappropriate prediction error signal. This is possibly linked to dopamine dysregulation. These errors make completely insignificant events, a car horn, a random news headline, feel intensely important, self-referential.
So an ordinary noise suddenly feels like an urgent message aimed directly at me, and I have to explain it.
You have flooded with these high-precision error signals you can't account for. The delusion that emerges as the brain's desperate attempt to create a story and explanatory
Scheme that makes sense of these strange signals.
and once that delusion forms,
Even if it's irrational, it brings a moment of relief. It reduces the surprise. And that release strongly
consolidates the belief, making it incredibly resistant to any change.
And the evidence here gets really specific, doesn't it? Especially with hallucinations.
It does. Studies on patients with auditory verbal hallucinations and hearing voices showed deficient sensory prediction errors in the auditory cortex. And this deficit was strongly correlated with excess activity in the auditory cortex during silence.
So, if I'm understanding this, the brain is
suppress the internal activity, which then becomes a full-blown percept, a voice generated from within.
That explains the clinical paradox, then. How delusions can be so...
Yet also weirdly elastic. They can absorb new facts without changing the core belief.
The system will twist reality are wrong, and it's why this framework is so exciting for therapy, leading to ideas like active therapy or AIT.
Which brings us to the future. If NEP is the blueprint for biological intelligence, can we build machines this way? Active inference, or AIF, is starting to pop up as a new paradigm in AI.
It's moving very quickly beyond just a theory. AIF is being designed to overcome the big limitations of current models, especially large language models. LLMs suffer from what you could call the grounded agency gap.
Meaning what exactly?
They're amazing pattern matchers, but they're passive. They can't act on their environment.
They have no grounding in causal reality.
They can tell you what a cup is, but they can't decide to go grab one to test their own theory.
Exactly. They are unembodied. An AIF agent is,
By its very nature, embodied. It's constantly reflecting on its place in the world and taking actions, active inference, to make its sensory expectations come true. It allows it to adapt and reason in real time, especially in volatile, complex environments where current deep learning really struggles.
We're starting to see real evidence of this. One of our sources pointed to a big breakthrough with Versus AI's Axiom model.
Yes, AIO is showing superior performance compared to, the state-of-the-art in reinforcement learning, even against flagship models like Google Mainline Streamer V3. And it's specifically in those messy, ambiguous, context-sensitive environments. It's strong empirical proof that this approach really works for handling real-world uncertainty.
He mentioned what this might not just be a better design choice for AI, but maybe a thermodynamic necessity. Why is that?
Because conventional AI relies on
constant, massively energy-intensive reward engineering to keep it learning. We are hitting hard physical limits on computing power and energy. FEP solves this by providing intrinsic motivation.
The agent is motivated just by existing.
Its motivation is to minimize preemption, to minimize surprise. That's it. This could radically reduce the need for external training signals, making these systems far, far more energy efficient.
So the brain's simple trick of avoiding surprises isn't just a psychological quirk. It might be the most energy efficient, the only sustainable way to build a complex, intelligent machine.
The physics of self-organizing systems all the way up to complex human psychology, and yes, the future of artificial intelligence.
That is a phenomenal synthesis. So to bring it all home for the person listening right now, the free energy principle offers this single, unifying explanation. Our brains are prediction machines, relentlessly driven to minimize surprise. This process shapes everything from our moment-to-moment perception to the stability and sometimes the pathology from its deeply held beliefs.
Right. And the key takeaway is that what we perceive as reality is a highly curated, highly precise internal hallucination. And it's only corrected when we're forced to admit that our model of the world is wrong.
Since we know the tension on this account is linked to expecting our decision or certainty, thinking about this as you go through your day. What does this tell you about your daily choices? Do you mostly seek out environments, media, and people that confirm your most precise established beliefs, inducing future surprise? Or do you